Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing great out there tonight and had yourselves a wonderful day. And I hope everyone's been having a great week out there so far. Here to bring an update on Hurricane Helene. Helene is a Category 1 hurricane as of right now. But by the time some of you folks watch this video, it could be a Category 2 or 3 storm. It is forecast to become a Category 4, 130 mile per hour hurricane now, guys. So it continues to go up as far as that peak intensity. So what we're going to do here is continue to do what we've been doing, is go over all the latest information. We'll speak on what's going on with this system right now. It's a very large hurricane. I cannot reiterate that enough, and what that means to impacts. This system is massive in the Gulf of Mexico, quite literally taking up half the Gulf of Mexico right now, and still extending in the portions of the Caribbean, by the way. So we got a lot to go over. We're going to go over the latest from the National Hurricane Center, really zoom into that cone for you folks, get you guys a good idea where this thing is going. We'll talk about all model guidance, the global models, the hurricane models, and we'll speak on that one last time for you folks. And I do say one last time because this will be the last detailed update I make on this system. Tomorrow, me and my buddy Gerald, some of you folks that watch me probably watch him. He runs a YouTube channel called GM Weather, does the same thing, talk the weather. We will actually be chasing this system tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. I'll have live updates, but we're going to talk about impacts in this video. We're going to get very detailed on it, talk about wind, storm surge, rainfall, even the tornado risk tomorrow, which is going to be quite high, by the way. So we're going to speak on all of it. The last portion of the video, we'll go into discussing why this has an opportunity to rapidly intensify over the next 24 hours before making landfall in about 24 hours into the Panhandle or Bend of Florida. So we're going to have this jam-packed of information. We got you covered, and hopefully I'll answer your questions. I'll try to mention some town names, city names, but there's a chance I'm going to miss yours. So don't take it personal. It's wild the amount of people that take it personal that I don't mention your town name or your area. It's very important to know where you are on a map. I do not mean that in a disrespectful or sarcastic way. It's very important, especially with a life-threatening hurricane on the way to your area. You got to know where you are on a map. You got to, guys. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. Of course, we're praying for everybody across the southeast with this system moving in. So let's get going here. So let's make sure this is going to work for us, and it is. So we're good to go. This is obviously the hurricane right here in the middle of your screen. Cyclonic spin ongoing right here. This is the center of the system. I mean, you can look at this now, right, and say, okay, well, this is obviously a hurricane. This system was dealing with some dry air. It still is a little bit. A little slither of dry air got kind of wrapped into the flow of the system. It's now mixing out, and this is in the process of, I think, at least moderately intensifying. It could undergo a period of rapid intensification sometime tonight, and it might be in the beginning stages of doing it right now. But this is a very large storm, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago. The outflow of this system above the actual mid to low level convection of the storm, like in the upper levels of the atmosphere. We've been talking about this nonstop and kind of the nerding out portion of the video I've been calling it over the last few days. You see how the clouds are expanding this way and then going like this and then kind of going down like that, and then you got the actual cyclonic spin in the low to mid levels of the atmosphere doing this. So that is that air being pushed out like we talked about. This is allowing for more air to rise. This is allowing for just the continuation of a rising air environment, which is allowing for a ton of moist air, shower and storm activity, convection, which is shower and storm activity anytime I mention that. So this thing is living and breathing its best life. And oh yeah, I forgot to mention, it's over sea surface temperatures that are in the mid to upper 80s in Fahrenheit. So the upper wind pattern is supportive for this to continue to maybe at some point rapidly intensify. In fact, it is forecast to rapidly intensify into that Category 4 hurricane. So we'll get this all back off our screen. We might return back to this when we break down the pattern ahead for this system. Latest information from the National Hurricane Center. And hurricane hunters are flying in and out of this system right now. This is kind of the portion of tracking this system where new information, you can get a new update anytime. Okay, but right now it's an 85 mile per hour hurricane. Forecast to become a 110 mile per hour Category 2 hurricane here in the next several hours. Sometime tonight, 2 a.m. tonight. Thursday morning, it's 102. Maybe it's a major hurricane. By the time we get into tomorrow afternoon, this is a 130 mile per hour category 4 major hurricane. Could continue to intensify. Listen, the peak intensity, I could see it going up to about a mid-grade category 4 hurricane. Dare I say a category 5? Let's pray to the Lord that it does not become that. Okay, but it'll make landfall sometime tomorrow night. I would say right around dinner time or a couple hours after. Right? And I'm telling you, Tallahassee, obviously a highly populated area. It's going to get hit very hard by this system. Guys, there is hurricane warnings all the way up to Macon, Georgia. That's the right smack dab in the middle of Georgia, folks. Tropical storm warnings are up for the entire state of Georgia and South Carolina. And I've seen some confusion on social media and even in the comments. I've read these a few comments like, oh, well, that's all I need to know. South Carolina's not going to be impacted. And I think because they're seeing this cone and they're saying, okay, well, South Carolina's not in the cone, you're not going to get impacted. I've reiterated this many times. The worst side of this system is going to be the eastern side. This system is huge. Let's take a wide look at this. Center of the storm's right here. The system expands all the way out here, folks. So the broad structure of this system's not going to change as it continues to move inland. Okay, it is going to bring impacts all the way over to Raleigh, probably. Some outer bands. The entire state of Florida already socked in clouds and rainfall right now. We're getting a pre-event because of this frontal boundary and the surge of moisture right here, where we're getting already flash flood warnings across the southern apps. So it's still a 80 mile per hour category 1 hurricane in southwest Georgia. But the impacts are going to be slamming all of Georgia into South Carolina. And folks, I can't tell you enough. Tomorrow night is going to be deadly. The potential to be deadly across Georgia and North Florida. And into South Carolina, all the way up into the southern apps. So this is the latest cone. The more traditional look from the National Hurricane Center. I love this look. It kind of shows you who has tropical storm warnings, hurricane warnings. I'm going to actually take a zoomed in look at this here in a second. But H stands for hurricane, M major, which category 3 or higher. And this is what I'm talking about, folks. You see this yellow right here? This is where tropical storm force wind conditions, 40 mile per hour winds or higher, extend away from the center. The center of the storm's here. Look how far it extends out away from the actual center of low pressure. So this entire wind field is going to continue to move this way. The blue, that's where you have tropical storm warnings up. The red, hurricane warnings up. Let's go on and just take a new look at this. This is from Pivotal Weather. Every county in South Carolina has a tropical storm warning. And you're thinking, well, how is that if the path of the system is going to go right through here? Okay? The east side of the system is going to be a high impact area of the system, guys. Okay, that's why every single county in Florida, except the extreme western panhandle of Florida, has some sort of tropical alert, either a tropical storm warning or a hurricane warning. Look at these hurricane warnings up. Not just Tallahassee over to Perry, all the way up to Macon, Georgia. Folks, I mean, and the reason I'm looking down, I'm looking at my phone. Literally all the way up to Macon, Georgia, all the way up to the highway to Interstate 1675 corridor here. You have tropical storm warnings up in Atlanta to Columbia, Augusta, all the way to Charleston, all the way to the Grand Strand, down to Savannah, Tybee Island, Jacksonville. I mean, hurricane warnings up for, Columbus looks like it's included in this. Just barely. Albany, of course, Valdosta. I mean, you guys, Tifton, it's just blowing my mind. A lot of people keep bringing up Opal and Hurricane Hugo, and I think you're exactly right. You know, Opal came up through, Alabama, I believe. I actually had to do my research on that system. I was only about 4 or 5 years old. But Hugo, I wasn't even born yet. I was born in 91. Hugo, of course, 89. And, they call these hurricanes bull hurricanes. I've heard that term before. And it's because they're coming in so fast. They hold on to that wind field well far inland because they're racing so far north. But I'm not trying to get too hung up on this. I already have. But, tropical storm warnings are already up all the way up for... let's go on and just look right here, too. All the way up for the mountains of North Carolina. And if you're wondering what this kind of mustard shade color is, those are high wind watches that will ultimately get upgraded to high wind warnings. So this is insane stuff, guys. I mean, it's just wild stuff. So let's start to go over some of the model guides. So I just want to say that right at 5 p.m., this was a 978 millibar storm. But the hurricane hunters are going through this right now, and I think they've already found another drop to about a 975 millibar. Okay, so... this thing is dropping in millibars as I'm speaking right now. And here it is. You see where the system kind of already went one time. It was at 975. It's about to fly through this again. And you see kind of where you're seeing the purple wind barbs here. Okay, this is where we're getting 60, 64, 65 knot winds or higher, which is equivalent to about 75 to 80 mile per hour winds. All right, we're going to see, if there's some stronger winds right into here, but it's about to fly through it again. Will they find another central drop? Not quite sure, but this is already in the 970s. So let's go over the latest model guidance. All right, remember it's around a 975 millibar low right now. GFS initializing this a little bit too weak. It's a 979 down here. Okay, watch how this number drops. The more this millibar number drops, the stronger this gets. We're waking up tomorrow morning. I think it'll be stronger than this. It's hard to even look at global models anymore, but we're just kind of looking at them more so because of the track. But you take it up to Thursday evening, tomorrow evening, 24 hours from now. I'm telling you, a lot of model guidance continues to be east. There was a huge argument on social media today. Guys, I keep it personal, and I like to discuss other things. I'm not going to be super professional all the time, but it was wild discussions on social media today about people not showing some of these in-house models, people showing them, and how model guidance is further east. One of the most common things I'm getting a question of is, Mitch, did it tick east today? Did it tick west? Did it do this? Did it do that? It's about the west and east thing. Folks, I will say the National Hurricane Center is stuck on this being further west than most model guidance, but they are the experts for a reason. Okay, now, as far as the landfall, the center of the system, remember the impacts expand way farther out. Okay, makes landfall. Look, this isn't a 6-hour span. It's still in the Gulf of Mexico, 8 o'clock tomorrow evening. By the time we get into 2 a.m., this thing is starting to ride up close to Augusta. It's pretty wild how fast it moves in and then out of certain areas. But when it's in, it is going to deliver one heck of a blow. Okay, this makes landfall sometime tomorrow evening. Moves into Georgia in the middle of the night. And folks, by the time you're into Friday morning, the center of this low pressure is all the way in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. So it goes from the Gulf of Mexico to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. I'm just spitting out a name that's close to this low here. In 12 hours. I mean, it's hard enough to make that drive. I mean, you can do it from the Panhandle to Gatlinburg, Tennessee in a car. This thing's going to be racing through that fast. Look at these, orange reds here. This will deliver all-out tropical storm force conditions all the way up here. And, of course, you're going to get big-time impacts and where it makes landfall in Florida. 100, 110, 120, 30 mile per hour wind gust. What about the latest Euro? Euro does the same thing, moves it up. We get into tomorrow afternoon. It's a 956 millibar low. And Euro, it's just a tick east of the National Hurricane Center column. Also makes landfall as a Category 3-ish hurricane. Forecast is stronger than that. Moves inland, brings huge impacts to Tallahassee over to Perry, Florida. Right in between that area. We'll talk more about individual town and areas. Crawfordville, I believe, is another one. Brings huge impacts across Valdosta, Columbus, all the way up to Macon. Brings big impacts into Augusta, Georgia, all the way up to Athens, Atlanta, into the wee hours of the morning. By the time we're waking up tomorrow about 8 a.m., it's not as quick as the GFS, but we're getting an all-out tropical storm moving into the mountains of Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee as we're waking up a Friday morning. And then, of course, this is going to do something kind of weird as it gets kind of pinwheeled around this upper level low and, deliver some rain across areas of the Mississippi Valley here. Now, what about some of these hurricane models? All of them are initializing a little bit too strong millibar-wise. But I think they got the right idea as far as this intensifying overnight. Do I think this is going to be a 939 millibar hurricane as we wake up tomorrow morning? I don't. But the H-Wharf model is saying it is. I do think the potential is there for this to intensify. I think more so just focus in on the time frame and the track of this system. So this is around 8 p.m. Here it comes, about to move into the Florida Panhandle, the Bend area. If something like the H-Wharf model was correct, it would take a high-end Category 4 hurricane right into, let's try to mention a couple areas. It would take it right, I would say, between Crawfordville and Perry. It would make landfall in any kind of smaller communities in there, not a highly populated area, right? I don't know if y'all call it Highway 98 or just 98. I know that's not an interstate, but it would basically move right between Crawfordville and Perry, Newport. St. Mark's, right through this area. So the landfall will be further west than the Idalia. And this is in a 3-hour period. Okay, in 3 hours, the center of this system goes from the Gulf of Mexico to Georgia. It's already in Georgia 3 hours later. And then here it comes. It continues to, hit Moultrie, Thomasville, Bainbridge, not Brainbridge. Moves up. Look at this eye wall, still intact at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning into Georgia, slamming Albany, getting all the way up to Macon. I mean, a local meteorologist here in Charlotte made a good point. This could potentially be Atlanta's version of what Charlotte dealt with Hurricane Hugo. And if you're in Atlanta tuning in, you're like, man, I don't even know what that means. Just look up what Hurricane Hugo did in '89 in Charlotte. The center of the system was still intact and went over the city. But look at this. This brings heavy impacts across all these areas. Now, some model guidance has this further into South Carolina, but South Carolina would still get a big impact from this. What about the HMON model? This intensifies. Here it comes. Makes landfall more so around 10, 11 p.m., maybe around midnight, a tick further west. So this would make a landfall, potentially right into that Lighthouse Point area, Piney Island. What do y'all call it? Panacea. I'm sure I butchered the heck out of that. Spring Creek. St. Mark's would get slammed. Something like the HMON model would bring huge impacts. It would bring the core of a Category 4 hurricane eye wall right over Tallahassee. Then would come in, slam every area in southwest Georgia. The hurricane models are stuck on the National Hurricane Center. The global models and some of these in-house local models are a little just further east. Okay, but this continues, slams Atlanta the wee hours of the morning. Look at all this water getting pushed into the mountains of southwest North Carolina and South Carolina. Okay, that is a huge flooding setup that's going to happen fast because this rain shield is going to be racing north into this area. Okay, and we keep this going, and of course, this is still wanting to show a 970-ish millibar storm all the way up into like northern Tennessee. It's pretty wild. It's hard to believe something like that happening, but it's showing it. All hurricane models are intensifying this into just about a Category 5 hurricane. The HFA model, this is more so in track with, 8, 9, 10 p.m. landfall between that same area, Crawfordville and Perry kind of landfall, right? Moves in, it's a little bit further east, big outer bands, tornado risk all the way into South Carolina will most likely be there. And this would slam the same areas. It ends up right in the same areas. Okay, and then the HFB model, here it comes. Makes that landfall kind of just a mixture of both. So we've really narrowed the landfall corridor down to, I think, literally the bend of Florida, right here in this area. I think this is where you're going to get the landfall as far as it actually coming on shore. Okay, and Tallahassee, somewhere up into here, I believe, or it might be a little bit further to the east there, but you get what I'm saying. Tallahassee is a highly populated area. In fact, I'm thinking about actually when I chase this thing, I'm probably going to stay around the I-10 corridor. There's no point in getting that much closer because the eye wall is not going to have time to weaken. It's just going to slam all the way up to the I-10 corridor and then well into Georgia. Okay? I'm telling you, if you live in South Georgia tomorrow night, I think you guys have had enough warning to know that you folks are going to get an all-out hurricane in South Georgia, especially southern, south central, and then southwest Georgia. And if this takes any further east, and even though the core of this system might not hit southeast Georgia, you guys are going to get an awful tornado risk. All the way into the overnight hours. A nocturnal tornado risk will be there. And this will be extending into South Carolina too. These outer bands starting to move in, and I'm worried about a tornado risk actually shifting and covering more of South Carolina into the wee hours of the morning, Friday morning. But what about rainfall? Okay, this is something that is starting to be talked about a lot. There's a high risk down here for the Panhandle and up here in the mountains of the Southern Alps. So, you're calling for 12 to 16 inches of rain now for areas, oddly enough, for areas like southwest of Tallahassee. This just looks kind of weird to me. I just feel like we're going to get more rain a little bit further, and I'm just noticing this as I'm looking at it. I feel like we're going to get more rain weird, man. Anyways, I feel like we're going to get more rain to the east. I do. I definitely think we are. But anyways, we're going to stick rolling. We're going to keep rolling with this. 8 to 12 inches of rain to North Georgia. And then the mountains, the southern Alps, anywhere from 8 to as much as 20 inches of rain as possible up here. Okay, and just to zoom into a couple of these areas, here's Florida. Here's that corridor, very, very heavy rain, flooding conditions, over a foot of rain is possible around the Tallahassee or just south area. All right, the western sections of Florida, 2 to 4, 5 inches of rain, mostly from these outer bands. A lot of water, big storm surge action into the Bend and then the west coast of Florida. And we go up to Georgia. Atlanta could get 5, 6 inches of rain. Now, some of this has already fell. You guys have gotten a lot of rain today, but look at still northern Georgia, northeast Georgia. The reason the rainfall totals look a little bit lower now is because a lot of this rain that was added that we saw this morning has already fell. Okay, it's falling right now. So, only going for a couple inches of rain in Columbia, 2 to 3 inches of rain in Augusta, and maybe this is right. The actual humans, the National Hurricane Center, just buying more of that Western solution. They really are. And if you say, Mitch, what do you think? My gut tells me this is going to take a little bit further east. I keep thinking that. I don't know if I'm going to be right. Just kind of a gut feeling. Could be totally wrong. All right. But a corridor of this heavy rain right here. I'm not going to try to mention every area. Here it is. Hopefully you know where you are on this map here. But you look at the southern Alps here. These guys are going to get hit hard. We need to really pray for our folks here in the western areas of North Carolina, South Carolina, and northeast Georgia. These mountainous areas, a lot of moisture is going to get pushed into these areas and just squeeze out every bit of moisture in the atmosphere. Could get 18, 20 inches of rain in certain areas. A lot of rain. The risk of flash flooding. Now you have kind of a bimodal high risk here. You got a 70% chance of flash flooding down here in the pink and a 70% chance right here where South Carolina, Georgia, and North Carolina meet. This includes Asheville, Hendersonville, Gainesville, includes like Clemson, South Carolina, includes Pickens. These areas will have an extreme rainfall risk here. Okay, please do not ignore this. Now, the wind threat here. This is the National Hurricane Center. Okay, National Hurricane Center forecast. They're going for Tampa, Clearwater area, anywhere from 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gust. Right against the immediate coastline. What is it? Cedar Key. Keaton Beach, I believe is what they're called here. You're probably going to get some hurricane force wind gusts, 74 miles per hour or higher. Winds across the entire peninsula of Florida. Just depends on where you are. Anywhere from 40, 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts. Higher once you get into North Georgia. Now you look at, say, the GFS model. Okay? It pushes everything a little bit further east. So this wants to bring higher winds into Tampa. Higher winds into the more of the Big Bend of Florida. Okay, it wants to bring those 90 to 100, 110 mile per hour wind gusts. And these are wind gusts, by the way. Okay, so you see the difference between a National Hurricane Center forecast and then, say, the GFS. Now, we go up into Georgia, and this does include North Florida too. Here's where the core of the system moves into the panhandle, the Bend of Florida. You see how they got this just weird little shapes right here? This is where they're forecasting the core of the system. And of course, this is in like 1 hour increments. I think. No, this is in 3 hour increments, so you're going to see weird little motions here. But it has the core of this system, forecasting the core of these winds, to move in right into, right into the Crawfordville area, the St. Marks, the Newport, right up into Tallahassee and just east of it. This is where you could have, I'm all over the place. This is where you could have these 100, 110, 120 mile per hour wind gusts. And then look, the core of the hurricane still rumbles all the way through Georgia. The reason you're seeing these weird little glitch in colors here is because National Weather Services are not on the same page. I'm sure that this will get corrected here in the next updates, like from Jacksonville and then Tallahassee. That's what's going on there. But even outside the main corridor of these heavy winds, these strong winds, look over here in Columbia. Look over here in Augusta. 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts are possible. Just winds will be howling overnight tomorrow night across these areas. And if you do look at something like the GFS, watch how everything kind of shifts, not kind of, but significantly shifts to the east. That's a huge difference, right? Huge difference by like 100 miles. So this is what I would say to you guys in southeast Georgia, more further into South Carolina, eastern Georgia. Keep your guard up. Know that, hey, models have consistently been east of what the National Hurricane Center is saying. Now, the hurricane models are right with the National Hurricane Center forecast, but the National Hurricane Center has been stuck on the further west path, and I'm not knocking on them, but they've been stuck on it for the last couple of days. And they might be exactly right. I'm not saying they're not going to be. But this would bring hurricane force winds well into Georgia all the way into South Carolina. All right, so we move up here a little bit. Look at this core. I mean, this brings like a core wind field all the way to Chattanooga. National Weather Service going for 50, maybe as much as 60 mile per hour wind gust up in the mountains of Tennessee and especially North Carolina, upstate South Carolina. What about that GFS? What does that GFS run show? We'll take a look at it here. I'm not buying this up here. I don't think we're going to get 60, 70 mile per hour wind gust all the way up into the Ohio Valley. But I mean, look at this all the way. This is just wild stuff. If this ends up happening, this will cause significant issues with these winds right in here. So we just got to continue to figure that one out. Storm surge, folks, has been increased to 15 to 20 feet in the bend right here of Florida. I mean, catastrophic, life-threatening storm surge. Not trying to use those big fancy words to try to freak everybody out, but it's true. I mean, the National Hurricane Center puts it in their briefing. Okay, still going for 5 to 8 inches of storm, 5 to 8 feet, of storm surge in Tampa Bay. And of course, there's a big sharp cutoff right here because on this side you go to the offshore flow. So the system's kind of moving in like this, right into this area. Onshore flow right into here, offshore flow. So you're not going to get much storm surge until sort of after this pulls out or right before it pulls in. So storm surge. Just don't be anywhere near the ocean, folks. I mean, it's as simple as that. You got to evacuate. Especially if they're telling you to evacuate, leave. Don't be stubborn. I mean, I understand some people just have nowhere to go. I get it. It would be hard for me to leave too. I would say that. It would be very difficult to leave everything that I know. Tough. I tell my wife all the time, I would not leave. I would tell y'all to leave, and I would hang out at the house and just ride it out. But anyways, enhanced risk for southeast Georgia, low country of South Carolina more. This is for a 10% risk of a tornado in this orange area. The yellow area is a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. Okay, that's a 10% risk. This could expand. The brown area could get extended deeper into South Carolina and Georgia, especially if this goes in that more westernly path here. The entire North Florida area, 5% risk of a tornado, 10% risk here in the yellow. And this is all driven off a tropical tornado threat, which we get with every tropical system. As we're getting into tomorrow, we're already getting these bands of rain. You see these orange, reds here embedded in the blobs of green. You could already have embedded tornadoes in this entire area right in here. Already a tornado risk maybe materializing. But you see this opening right here? Watch how these bands move into this opening or either come in off the shoreline. Watch as we continue to move here. See how these banding features starting to move in? Look at these. These are going to produce tornadoes in southeast Georgia. I'm not trying to overhype something, but these could produce tornadoes up here also. You see these kind of splotches of red and orange, yellow? These are going to have some rotation with them. And this little dry slot right here is going to mean business. And then this continues to move in overnight. And then look at this band that develops over eastern South Carolina. I'm telling you, yeah, eastern South Carolina, maybe southeast Georgia might not get those widespread tropical storm force winds or hurricane force winds. But with these bands, these banding features moving across this entire area of Georgia and South Carolina, this entire banding feature right here that will probably move like this. It'll be popping off tornado warnings left and right tomorrow night. I mean, mark my word. I'm strongly confident in that. Okay, we keep this going, and we could have a tornado risk tomorrow morning in Friday morning in North Carolina too. And you look at the significant tornado parameter. Check out how this spikes over northern sections of Florida tomorrow, southeast Georgia. And I'm sorry I'm not mentioning North Georgia on this tornado risk, folks. The tornado threat is serious tomorrow in northern Florida too. Southeast Georgia, and look how it spikes tomorrow night along kind of the South Carolina Georgia border down here. I mean, the low country of South Carolina, that is a legitimate tornado risk, significant tornado parameter spiking to 4, 5s, and 6s, which tells us the ingredients are there for tornadoes. All right, and then you look at, this is the lower wind field, winds at about 3,000 to 5,000 feet up in the air. Just like with any tropical threat, you're going to have this southerly flow. Winds are going at well above interstate speeds, about a mile above our heads across southeast Georgia, low country of South Carolina. This is creating a lot of wind energy in the atmosphere. Therefore, you're going to have plenty of wind flow to support a tornado threat, and along with very moist air that comes with any tropical system. Okay, so why is this system going to have an opportunity to rapidly intensify over the next 24 hours? Well, low pressure in the northern hemisphere spins like this, right? So it's going to be spinning like this, like it is right now, okay? And in fact, this was actually, let's actually move this in time a little bit. So we'll move this right into here. Okay, in the upper levels of the atmosphere, you see all these lines right here with the arrowheads embedded into them. Air is being dispersed out like this, and this is happening right now. This isn't new or it's going to happen. This is happening right now. Air is being pushed out just like that. Okay, so much expanding air, divergence aloft. Air is being removed from the system, allowing for more air to rise. This is basically just allowing for this storm to really breathe very well, promote a rising air environment. Therefore, a huge, massive, moist bubble field of moist air surrounds the system, allows for the continuous intensification process of this system, allows for the structure to continue to improve. But I'm basically saying is the upper wind pattern supports this, therefore a very moist environment will be here for this system to continue to intensify. And this is all really generated off this jet streak here. You see this huge area in orange and yellow and green. This is where winds are absolutely booking it about 40,000 feet up in the air. This is where our jet stream sits. And this is what is pushing so much air rapidly out ahead of this system. Okay, and that air being dispersed outward creates an environment for very moist air. So therefore, if you look at moist air indicated in the green and brown air indicated in the, I said brown air, guys, I'm everywhere. The brown on your screen, which indicates brown. Oh my gosh. Y'all are probably cracking up on me right now. I'm sorry. This is a serious situation. But the brown on your screen indicates dry air, not brown air, dry air. So it might be brown air. I'm not sure. But anyways, a lot of moist air in this green area. And it's verifying very well right now. You see this moist funnel of air coming up. This is where there's actual moisture falling from the sky. So basically this upper wind divergence flow is pushing so much air into this area, it's creating an environment for rising air. Therefore, you got the firing of convection, shower, and storm activity pushed way ahead of this system. And you can see it going on right now, right? Look at all this, man. Check out this tornado warning going on in South Georgia already. But look at all this rain. If it would pop up for us, you can tell that the video is just done now. So there it is. See all the moisture rising in? The hurricane's down here. It's not showing up on radar yet. But look at all these rounds of rain already getting shoved into Florida all the way up into Georgia. And of course, we're already getting a flash flooding event ongoing in areas of Georgia in the Carolinas right now. So all the way into eastern Tennessee. So it matches up well with all this moisture getting slung north of this system because of so much air being dispersed north of the actual low. So that's all I got, guys. That's my last update. I'll be chasing tomorrow. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you for trusting me with breaking down the system. And I'll keep you covered all day tomorrow via social media. Hit me up there, Facebook or Twitter. I will continue to still give you guys updates in the community tab occasionally too. So talk to you guys later. Stay safe. Make the prepare like you're supposed to. Definitely be aware of this system. I think there's been plenty of talk on it to not get anybody by surprise. Or take anybody by surprise. So God bless all you. Love you all. Appreciate y'all, and I'll talk to you soon.